Greetings and welcome to another Pokemon 2023 or Pokemon Horizons the series anime episode review. This time I am talking about episode 10. So, let's get to it. The episode begins in Artazon. Liko and Roy are here looking for Brassius in order to ask him about Shiny Rayquaza. They soon find a sculpture of a Sunflora made by the man himself, and the episode cuts to him as he cries out in anguish in front of a sculpture of Shiny Rayquaza. Liko and Roy ask around town hoping to find something about Rayquaza, but their search does not prove fruitful. A battle soon catches their attention. Said battle is between Nemona and a random trainer. Nemona's Pomo uses Spark to defeat the opposing trainer's Skiploom. Her victory earns her praise from everyone around her, including Roy. Seeing that Roy is a trainer as well, Nemona excitedly challenges him to a battle. However, Liko intervenes, saying that they are looking for Brassius. Since she knows him, Nemona leads Liko and Roy to his atelier, where she reveals happily that he is an artist and a gym leader. Roy wonders about gym leaders, so Nemona tells him that defeating them allows one to reach champion rank, and she tries to convince Roy to give said pursuit a try. The mention of champion makes Liko realize who Nemona is, a well-known and skilled champion rank trainer. Nemona confirms that this is true, and she greets Liko, who is honored to meet her. Nemona then reveals that she has business with Brassius as well, since he has been away from the gym for a while. So she is here to check up on him, revealing that my prediction was sort of right. She adds that kids have even begun gathering Sunflora, hoping that this will make Brassius return sooner, because Sunflora are little suns, meaning that they symbolize smiles. So they should bring him back with a smile. Liko and Roy then introduce themselves and their Pokemon to Nemona, who is happy to meet them, and she introduces Pomo to them. They all then hear shouting from the atelier, so they go around the back to see what's up, and they find Brassius lamenting over a broken sculpture. Nemona tells him that Liko and Roy are here to see him. Liko says that she heard of Brassius from her father Alex, who makes picture books. Recognizing who Alex is, Brassius is more than happy to welcome his daughter. Inside the atelier, they all sit down to talk over some drinks and snacks. Roy asks about Rayquaza. However, this upsets Brassius, who leaves the room while exclaiming, "Not a band guard." He soon walks up to a broken sculpture of Rayquaza. Everyone is left perplexed by what happened, and they wonder what is going on with Brassius. Liko soon spots a piece of the broken sculpture, which makes her realize that Brassius is going through a slump, and she mentions that her father has gone through this as well. Nemona wonders what Alex does to get over slumps. Liko mentions that he does something that brings him a smile. This gives Roy the idea that they should gather Sunflora as well, recalling what Nemona said about them symbolizing smiles. And so, they all head out to find some, which they easily manage to do. During the search, Sprigatito decides to take a nap. This gives Liko an idea. Since Sprigatito likes sunbathing and the Sunflora represent the sun, Perhaps she will find a lot of them if she lets Sprigatito go where it wants. The plan works, and Liko ends up gathering a ton of Sunflora, more than Nemona and Roy, who were able to gather a respectable amount. With all the Sunflora together, they believe that Brassius will finally be able to smile. However, this turns out to be false, since Brassius, who decided to go for a walk, witnessed everything, and his mood is no better. However, his Dolive chooses to force him out of hiding, which makes him finally reveal the cause of his plight. He leads everyone to his workshop, where he shows them his latest work, a sculpture of a Sunflora looking in awe at a Shiny Rayquaza. He drew inspiration from Alex's work in order to create this. But one day, he saw the real Shiny Rayquaza, which made him realize that his sculpture cannot match up to the real thing. And thus, he became unsatisfied with everything he made, marking the start of his slump. However, Roy is undeterred. He says that he now wants to find Rayquaza even more. He also praises the sculpture Brassius made, saying that it is just as amazing as the real deal. Roy then decides to go investigate the place where Brassius saw Rayquaza, but Brassius stops him, wondering why he is so adamant about pursuing Rayquaza. Roy says that it's because Rayquaza was his first step. This thrills Brassius, who calls Roy a band guard, and he says that as gym leader, he will see if Roy has what it takes to challenge Rayquaza. At the battlefield, Brassius and Roy get ready to face each other in battle. I love that, like in the games, Brassius jumps off the windmill just before the battle. Additionally, they use the music from the games, which is great. Nemona is excited because they were able to bring Brassius back. With Roy declaring that he must win, Brassius sends out Sudowoodo, and the battle begins. Roy erroneously assumes that Sudowoodo is a grass-type Pokemon, and he confidently calls for Ember, which does nothing to the imitation Pokemon, who counterattacks with Rock Throw, which causes some good damage. Roy is shocked, so Nemona finally clues him into the fact that Sudowoodo is a Rock-type Pokemon, which shocks him even further. Sudowoodo then uses Rock Throw again, but Fuecoco uses Tackle to weave through the rocks and close the gap. However, before it can land a hit, Sudowoodo confuses it by using Substitute. Fuecoco and Roy try to find the real one by guessing, but this does not work. Sudowoodo then uses Taunt, which is hilarious. This makes Fuecoco attack at random using Ember while disregarding Roy's commands. This accomplishes nothing, and Roy is unsure of what to do. But Brassius tells him that instead of watching Sudowoodo closely, in order to determine which one is the real one, Roy should be watching his Pokemon closely. Roy heeds the advice, which makes him realize that in its anger, Fuecoco is brimming with power. So he has Fuecoco use this anger to attack, which it does, learning Stomping Tantrum in the process, which it uses to finally find the real Sudowoodo. Fuecoco then uses Stomping Tantrum again, which lands a powerful, super effective hit on Sudowoodo. Nemona is impressed, and she says that they have potential, since they learned a new move mid-battle. Liko meanwhile realizes that Brassius gave Roy and Fuecoco the chance to grow. Fuecoco goes in for the finishing strike. However, Brassius Terastallizes Sudowoodo. Since Sudowoodo is now a grass-type Pokemon, Fuecoco uses Ember. But Sudowoodo uses Trail Blaze to avoid the Ember and land a clean hit on Fuecoco, who is defeated. Liko and Roy are both impressed by Terastal, so Nemona explains it and the Terra types to them, thus allowing them to gain an appreciation for these mechanics, with Roy saying that he wants to use Terastal as well. Brassius soon approaches them. He tells Roy not to forget what he learned from the battle. Roy promises that he won't. Brassius then reveals that he has something else to show them. Another sculpture he made. This one is of the forest Oliva, which he saw when he saw Rayquaza. The Oliva reacted to Rayquaza by glowing, revealing that it is somehow connected to it. Since Liko's pendant also glowed due to Rayquaza and the ancient Pokeball, and it even looks like the Oliva, my guess is that there is some connection here as well. And Liko clearly perceives something of this ilk, since when they get back to the airship, she tells Roy that she could feel sadness emanating from the sculpture. She believes that there is some secret here. The episode ends in a forest, presumably the one where Brassius saw Rayquaza. A big something, perhaps the Arboliva that will appear in the next episode, is seen stomping around. So, that's the short but detailed summary of the episode. Now it's time to highlight, analyze, and comment on my favorite moments and or moments that are noteworthy / interesting. Obviously, the highlight of this episode was getting to see Nemona and Brassius in the anime. I think that they did a great job of translating their characters from the games into the anime. Nemona is about as cheerful, battle-hungry, and energetic as you would expect her to be. Plus, she is just as kind and caring. However, they made her more mature, less airheaded, and a tad bit more serious, which is something I can appreciate. This makes her feel more like a champion and mentor, which is what she is. In the games, she often felt a little bit too silly, in a good way, to be taken seriously as an experienced and seasoned trainer that is meant to be both a teacher and the pinnacle we are to reach. I think that the way she is depicted in the anime works better. Her defining traits are preserved while making her suit her role better. Though I must admit that she could use just a little more energy. It did feel a little off to not see her be a lovable and uncontainable bundle of joy that pulls everyone into her crazy antics. But I know that we will surely see more of her in the future. Given that this was a more serious episode, perhaps it just wasn't the right time for her to be as animated as normal. Also, she was sadly unable to do much in terms of action. But again, this might come later. As for Brassius, his eccentric and artistically obsessive personality translated well into the anime. Unlike Nemona, he is exactly just as you would imagine him to be. They took no liberties with his depiction, which is fine. He was funny and interesting, which is exactly what he should be. And better yet, we even got to see him face Roy in battle, which was a great surprise. I knew Brassius would battle someone in this episode, but I had no idea it would be Roy. Now sure, if Brassius had faced Nemona instead, it would have been better, since it would have surely been a cooler battle. Plus Nemona would have used Terastallization as well, and we could have seen her more in action. But I like that Roy and Fuecoco got the chance to grow. Liko and Roy are still novices, so they need all the help they can get when it comes to getting stronger. I love that they aren't, for the most part, just making them go from zero to hero without having them work for it. Instead, they are slowly but surely building them up with meaningful experiences that give them the chance to learn and improve. Roy's battle with Brassius was a great example of this. Therefore, it was still a nice and worthwhile battle, even if it wasn't anything groundbreaking. Additionally, we finally got to see Terastallization in the anime, which is great. Finally, this episode added to the mystery of Rayquaza and the pendant, thus making the entire series more interesting and engaging. But those are my thoughts on and analysis of the episode. Now it's time to bring this review to a close by going over my overall opinion of the episode. So overall, this episode was great. The introduction of two amazing characters from the games, the furthering of the engrossing mystery surrounding this series, and the fact that Roy got to face a gym leader, thus allowing him to get better, all contributed into making this one of the best episodes of this series yet. I can only hope that we will get more awesome episodes like this one going forward. But that's the review and the video. So, as always, leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and would like to see more like it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I love Pokemon and I love making videos on both the anime and the games. Also, please consider clicking the links on screen so that you can check out more videos like this right away. Thank you very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.